And welcome back to the Daily Run with Za. My name's Eliza Miron, and I'm the host of the Daily Run with Za. Today we have Paula Gordon. She's from South Dakota, a run streaker of 21 years. So that's 7,952 consecutive days of a daily run. And we're here to talk about run streaking and life and everything else. So thanks for joining us, Paula.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, I guess to begin, besides running, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I actually grew up as a swimmer, and I am a swim coach, and I'm a retired PE teacher, and I was an athletic trainer at one time. And I had a swimmer identity. I still live in the world of swimming mostly, but I swam through college, and I was very successful at swimming. But in high school, I wanted to try a school sport because in South Dakota, there's no high school swimming. It's just club. And so I thought of a sport that I couldn't get cut and that I didn't have to be throwing a ball or catching a ball or using a ball. So I decided to try cross country.
Yeah.
And it worked well with swimming. And there were, like, this is a confession, but there were a lot of cute guys in the cross country team.
Nice, that helps.
So I thought, well, this will be fun. And my only two goals in cross country were to never quit a race and to never get last. And I never did either one, but I came really close to getting last. But it was fun. And the funny thing is, I think out of all those people that were on the cross country team, I'm probably the only one still running. So
yeah, I like your I like your story because I relate. It was the same thing. I would sit on the bench during soccer games eating gummy worms with friends, and I'm like, there has to, I can be making better use of my time. And same thing. I was the only girl on the cross country team, and later recruited some friends to join. Of course, the soccer coach was a little bit mad taking some players off the team. But yeah, it's. And same thing, I never came in last, always did a race. So
then after college, I became a certified athletic trainer and a teacher. And so that means you work all day and all night and all weekend. And I needed exercise. So I would walk, run. In the summers, I'd bike and swim. And I tried to, stay active and healthy. And then one year I started, I have 3 kids. And so the last one was a surprise C-section. And so that kind of wasn't in my plan. And I wasn't used to being kind of, cut up. So I gave myself some time to heal from that. And then I just felt like there was never any time for me with 3 little kids. And I thought, I can't get to a gym. I work all the time. And I thought, wait a minute, I'm in a gym. I'm a PE teacher. So I started running during my PE classes, both to set an example, and to get a little exercise, a little bit selfish, a little bit not selfish. So I would run each class period with the kids, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes each. We'd work ourselves up to the mile run in the spring. And then in that spring, I realized I'm running like 40 minutes a day. Maybe I could do a road race. So I challenged my 5th grade class to a road race in 1995. And one student showed up. It was windy and rainy and cold. And so I ran it with that student and his dad. And I had fun. It was kind of exciting. So then I started to think, well, maybe I should do another road race. So I'd sign up for one, and then I'd get out and run. And then I'd do it, and then I'd not run, and, inconsistent. So during that teaching, I also taught middle school health. And I had a unit called Lifetime Fitness. So I would bring in different staff members and have them talk about their fitness to my students. And one of the people that came in was our head grounds guy, and he also was a cross-country coach, and he would talk about this running streak he had that he started in the 70s in high school. And he was up in the 20s in years. And he would talk about that each year, and I thought that was just amazing. He'd bring a dot matrix, spread sheet of paper that was a mile long with all of his miles, and
Wow.
You know, and that kind of planted a seed in my head. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize it at the time. But in 1999, I went to my doctor and I was complaining, like, I just can't wake up in the morning. I'm so tired. I can't fall asleep at night. You know, the 3 kids.
Yeah.
And so he listened to my day, and I was trying to go running after the kids went to bed. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, you're overstimulating yourself. You need to run in the morning. And I'm like, but I can't get up, you know. Yeah. So to run in the morning meant I had to get up before my husband went to work in the summer. So I tried it one day in July. It was July 13th, 1999. Mm-hmm. I got up, went for a couple miles, got back. I had a very productive day. So the next day I did it again and again. And then I was like, I have a week, you know. Yeah. Now I have a month. And about a month later, school started and I had a routine. And I felt better. So I just kept doing it. And I mentioned to Tony that I'd run every day for X many days, you know. And he was like, wow, good job doing here, you know. Okay. Yeah. So I just kept going. And when every fall when I'd get back to school, I'd tell Tony how many, you know, I made a year, I made 2 years, I made 5 years, you know. And so he was my cheerleader.
Yeah. And he was probably like, soon enough, you'll end up like me at 20 years. And here you are.
Yeah, exactly. And then he made it 28 years. Mm-hmm. And then he ruptured his Achilles loading a snowplow on the front end of his pickup. Mm-hmm. And so then I knew, like, okay, now I've got a finite date. 28 years till I catch Tony.
Yeah.
And then he started up again. He started up a couple times. Yeah. But my goal is to catch Tony.
Yeah, well, you're getting very close.
Yeah. So.
And do you still keep in touch?
I retired, and I have tried to reach out to him, but I don't think I have his right email. But I'm going to try to connect with him so I can tell him to register all of his streaks. Yeah. Because he has some pretty impressive ones. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so I stuck with mornings. And for me, the mornings worked the best because after I retired from athletic training and my kids got older, I started coaching swimming. And then they started swimming. And so I was running to swim practice all the time. Days were just super long.
Yeah.
So the only way to carve out time was to get it done in the morning. Mm-hmm. And I just felt like it helped me wake up, be a better person, you know, keep exercising. And so mornings it was, you know.
Yeah.
So,
and early on in the morning, or in your streak running in the morning, what did that look like? You know, a lot of people kind of have a schedule Monday through Friday, but when Saturday, Sunday comes, you know, it kind of maybe falls off, or, you know, it's a rest day. So what did that Saturday and Sunday look like for you?
You know, they're the hardest ones because I would put it off. Yeah. You know, I'd be like, oh, I'll run in a little bit. And then if something came up, I'm like, doggone it. Yeah. You know, and so I would, some days, some weekends, it would be like, oh, I can go a little longer because I'm not crunched for time. Mm-hmm. And some days I'd be like, we're so busy, I've just got to get a measly. I called it a measly mile too. I noticed that you had called it that. Yeah. And I've always called it my measly mile.
That's funny. Nice. I mean, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So, you know, the really, like, one of the hardest things was we were at swim meets a lot. And we travel. South Dakota, you know, has a lot of distance between towns. And so we would travel a lot. So I'd have to get up, you know, at a hotel, sneak out without waking anybody up, figure out where I was going to go for a quick mile or two, get back in before they woke up so I could hit the shower first, you know, because you got 5 people in a hotel room.
Well, yeah, it just sounds like, you know, setting your priorities. There's always time. You just have to make it a priority. And you're also making me nervous that, you know, I have 2 young boys, 4 and 6, you know, once they hit that age of whatever soccer practices or anything, I'm like, oh, great, you know, that's going to be another challenge.
Well, I used to, like, sometimes I drop them off at whatever practice because they're also in music, they were in dance, you know, like I had 2 boys and a girl, and so there was lots of different things. But like sometimes I drop them off for a rehearsal, and then I just run there. Mm-hmm. And I'd be on like the other side of town. It'd be funny. People would say, I saw you running. How far do you go? So I'm like, not very far. Because they would see me 10 miles from home. And I'm like, meow. No.
Yeah.
But anyway, So I just, like, the mornings were really big, and we ended up moving a few years into my streak. Well, 1 year into my streak. And we live right by a bike trail access. And so there's a literal 5K from my driveway down to the turnaround point and back was a 5K. And it was, all I had to do was cross one road and I was good to go. And so that became my Groundhog's Day. Like every morning, same thing. Alarm goes off, sleepwalk to the clothes, throw them on.
And what time would you get out?
Well, between either 5:10 or 5:30. I worked in two different towns. I was a teacher in a district, then I was split between two towns, so it kind of depended on which day it was. And so I'd have about 40 minutes to run, and that's 5K, get out there, get back, and then I was awake and life went on. Yeah. And I did that consistently for 20 years. Like, pretty much every day was a 5K. So it's easy to keep track of mileage, 3.1, 3.1, And lucky for me, I kept a journal. I'd been keeping a journal since 95. And I'm glad I did, because I would just write it down in my journal. And
so what does that look like, the details? What are the details of your journal?
Brain dump. Just a way to, again, help me get rid of the day and go to sleep. Nothing fascinating,
But you write down how many miles you ran.
Yeah. I would write down my mileage and a couple things about the day. And usually it was cold, windy, wet, windy, hot, windy. We live in South Dakota, so we have every weather extreme you can imagine. And I did pretty well, and I subscribed to the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And so when I'd get to my 1,000th mile, I'd take trail mix to school and, celebrate. And people didn't get it, but, it was my little fun day in October or November. And so anyway, that I did for a long, long time. And then, I did a few road races, and I would do those pretty much until my kids got to where we were gone every weekend. But I did do one marathon, and I did that for my 40th birthday year. And I thought I better hurry up and do one. I'm not getting any younger. So I did that. I did the Grandma's Marathon in Duluth, Minnesota.
Okay, yeah. And
that was fun. I decided it really took a lot of time from my family. So I tried to get in one more time, and I didn't. But my kids got to be pretty elite level swimmers. And so we went from traveling across the state to across the country and eventually like around the world. So the good thing is, like every single place I've been since I started my streak, I've run at least a mile there. So like every state I've been to, if it's been since 99, I know I've run there. And so one of my goals is to run a mile in every state.
So how many states are you at?
I think about 26 or 27. Okay. Yeah. I've run in several countries. I've run in all four hemispheres.
What countries?
Mexico, United States, Thailand, Singapore, Australia. And, like you travel once. Our son got married on a destination wedding in 2019 in Thailand. So that hit Singapore, Australia.
Oh, yeah.
Because we made a little trip on the way home of stopping a few places. So,
have you ever ran in an airport during your layover?
Oh, my gosh. My closest calls have been air travel. And, I didn't know there were streak running rules. I think I heard Tony say, I run a mile every day, so lucky for me, that was my minimum. Yeah. I didn't know it was a rule.
Well, yeah, and I guess it was actually about the same time as you started your streak, 99.
Yeah.
That they formulated the registry.
Right. And that was, I'm just glad I did all that. But my biggest thing was when we flew to Australia, we had to board the plane at 11 p.m. And then when we landed, we skipped a day. Like there was a day missing. And I was like, if I don't record the day, like there'll be a gap, what do I do? And I didn't know what. So I thought of two plans. One would be to run in the aisles of the plane and hope they didn't throw me out of it. Mm-hmm. And that didn't work. Well, people are sleeping, legs are sticking out.
It's funny. I've had that. I mean, it's talking with you. It doesn't seem crazy, but it, from an outsider, this is a definitely crazy idea. But I've thought of that too.
Yeah, I was, and we didn't stop. We're flying from LA to Melbourne, Australia. It's a straight flight. Mm-hmm. So then plan B, I thought, okay, it's still going to be that same day when we land. It'll be that day in LA. Mm-hmm. So that was before smartwatches. So I just left my watch set on LA time. Yeah. When we got through customs and everything in Melbourne and we got checked into our hotel, it was still the same day in LA. So I went up. It was the last time I ran on a treadmill, I think, because it was 110 degrees outside. We went from winter in South Dakota to 110. Yeah. And so I went up to the fitness center and I got on the treadmill and I ran 1.2 miles because I counted 1.2 as my measly mile.
Yeah, I've never ran just 1.0 either.
Yeah, yeah. And then I got off the treadmill. I reset my watch to Melbourne time, and then I ran 2 more miles. I was like, I don't know if this counts, but I don't know what else to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard traveling that far away. Like I've traveled to India several times, and I've always had a layover. So I've ran in quite a few different airports. My first time it was in the London Heathrow airport. I was only going to do a measly mile, but I got into a mile. I'm like, this is actually pretty fun. I ended up running 5K, 3 miles.
Well, in 2019, when we flew to Thailand, again, you kind of skip a day because you board late at night. So this time I wasn't having it. Yeah. I kept my watch on South Dakota time, which is Central Time Zone. And we boarded the flight at, again, like 11:30 at night. So I kept it on South Dakota time. And at midnight, after midnight South Dakota, I just took off running in LAX, and there wasn't hardly anybody there. And apparently other people have done it because they didn't bat an eye. Like nobody even questioned why I was running back.
Yeah. I don't think other people have done it before, but I think it's just like, I mean, the second time I ran in London, we were almost getting stopped running, but I was like, I don't care if you have to, call the security. I'm getting in this run.
Yeah.
So it's just.
And that worked out fine. And then the other time I really came close was we were delayed in Denver and we couldn't get out. And our flight was supposed to be out of California back to Sioux Falls at, like 4:30 in the morning, and we'd be home by noon. Mm-hmm. And we didn't get out on time. So then we couldn't get out of Denver, and there was snow everywhere, so I'm like, crud, I didn't run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we kept getting moved from, you'll be able to get on the next flight, blah, blah. So finally I made up a story. Like I pretended like I forgot my cell phone charger in the other terminal. Nice. In the Denver airport. It's literally like a half a mile from one end to the other. Mm-hmm. And, by then I had a smartwatch. And so a Fitbit. And so I pretended I was looking for my charger just in case they pulled me aside.
So you were on the plane and you had to use that excuse to get off the plane, back in the terminal, do your run and come back?
Well, no, we weren't on any plane. We were waiting to get a flight. And they just kept shuffling us around.
Yeah.
So I just decided I'm running. And so luckily I had carry-on, and I always wear my running shoes on the plane. I never pack them because I'm worried that they'll get lost.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Yeah. So I just grabbed my phone and my, in case I needed to call my husband to get me out of security. Anyway, and I just ran the Denver airport. Nobody batted an eye, and I ran until I got, my measly mile, and then I went back, fanned myself, and put my warm clothes back on.
Yeah, there you go.
So it's taught me, no matter what time your flight is, run an insurance mile before you go. And then you can always run more once you get there.
There you go. Yep. I had to learn that. The first time I learned that, I was, still in high school, only a few years into my streak, going to Florida with friends. We left at like noon. I could have easily ran in the morning. But, you know, our flight kept getting delayed. We didn't get to Florida till like 10 p.m. Yeah. So, you know, I was literally going to run in the airport, and my friends were like, you can't do that. Like, you know, we'll get there in time. And, you know, but that's how I learned. Yeah. I always do it first thing. But
yeah. So one of the things, you know, like it took me until I ran a marathon to call myself a runner, because I thought of runners as people who ran like in college and were good and won road races. And I just kept saying, oh, I'm a swimmer who jogs. You know, and I do run like a swimmer. If you've ever, you know, we have big feet and floppy ankles. So anyway, it took me till I ran a marathon to call myself a runner. And that was because I had a sign in my gym that said, you are what you repeatedly do. Mm-hmm. And so I realized, like, okay, I run. I don't actually swim that much. So anyway, that was kind of a turning point, was a marathon. And I was like, okay, I'm a runner. You don't have to be fast. Yeah. You just have to be.
You just have to get out there every day and run. And
Yep. So for me, it was kind of very important to have my streak, because my streak is what kept me going. And other people, like, you know, you've heard that you're crazy and that's not good for you, and oh, you shouldn't run. And I said, you know what? It works for me. Yeah. I need black and white. If I have gray area, you know, one day becomes two becomes three, if I'm taking a day off. So, you know, I like consistency. I like having it every day, so I don't have to remember, you know, did I take a day off yesterday or did I run, you know? So, and I would run that trail every day, and I'd see some of the same people jogging or running, and some of them, like, we'd meet up at the same time after, you know, saying hi years, and then I'd start running with them. And I've actually made a lot of good friends on the one trail I run, because it's kind of it's a safe, popular area, you know. And I've made some really good friends. Yeah. And it's funny, because I gave them nicknames, because I don't know who they were. And and then I'd get to know their name, and I couldn't call them their name. I still called them whatever I thought of them as, you know.
So, like, what's an example of a nickname you gave?
Well, this is the funniest one. There was a guy who's a little older than me, and I'd see him running some mornings, and then sometimes I'd see him, like, if I went on a Saturday at 4:00, there he'd be. Like, that's random, you know? That's really random. So I just called him Random.
Yeah.
And his real name's Mike, but we got to be good friends. We started running together, and he worked, he was retired, so he worked a part-time job. Okay. And that's why he ran some mornings and some evenings.
So it's just coincidence that you'd be out there at the same time, I guess.
Yeah. And he thought it was hilarious that I called him Random. He goes, but if you're out here at a different time, are you Random? I'm like, no, you are.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So anyway, but it was great to meet people along the trail and have, I call my running buddies. And there's been many of those throughout the years that have come and gone. And now that I'm retired, I run whenever I want, and I run in the daylight. I don't have to run, you know, just on the one spot. So
yeah, that's true.
It's been fun. I've been exploring more.
How long have you been retired?
Pardon?
How long have you been?
It's coming up on 2 years.
Okay.
And I still coach swimming, so I'm semi-retired, but I don't have to get up at 5:10 anymore. So, I found some dirt trails. 2020, the bike trail got super, super busy. Everybody was out walking and riding bikes, and I got a little annoyed. So I noticed we had some dirt bike trails that were parallel to our trail system. So I really enjoyed, like, running up and down the little hills and the dirt, and, you know, really having to be mindful of where I'm stepping. You know, it's been mindful running rather than just mindless let it go running. So, got to be careful. I don't want to trip. Yeah. So, but I like that. The only problem was, like, last year I realized I could run a lot more. And so this year I upped my goal, and I'm trying to run 2,021 miles. And for people like you who run fast, That might be okay, but for us slow pokes, it takes forever.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I'm very fast and back in the day maybe, but
oh, well, I think I'm going really fast till I hear my app tell me how slow I'm going, and then I'm like, oh, I'll get over it. So,
and do you still keep your journal, or now that you have an app, you do? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then so last year I hit 21 miles, and we have a Facebook group called Sioux Falls Women Run. Mm-hmm. And I posted on there on my 21 year, and I said, my streak turned 21, thought we should celebrate. I took a picture of a Mai Tai or some, I don't know, some drink or whatever, jokingly, you know. Mm-hmm. And somebody commented, I sure hope you have that streak registered. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I wonder what that is. So I Googled it, and I'm like, holy cow, there really is a streak registry.
Yeah.
Okay. So I went on and I registered it, and I got an email back from a guy in Minnesota, the Rochester area, mm-hmm. and he's like, holy cow, you have the longest active streak in South Dakota, and you have this and that. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know it was a thing. I had no idea. Mm-hmm. And so it's been fun. I read those emails, and I'm like, wow. And then I read one of the national or the international ones I got, and I think that was Mark, right? That sends those out.
Yeah.
Washington.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, every now and then we get a random person that, has been like running 21 years, and we need to validate that. And I'm like, that sounds like me.
Yeah.
So I emailed and I said, I have written copy, I have it written in journals. So New Year's, I started 20 some spreadsheets, of each year. And I started grabbing a journal out of the box and just a random journal and like recording all the mileage. And then I kind of hit a wall because I hit the year that 2011, 2012, like that was just a crazy busy year. And my kids, one was a senior in college, one was a senior in high school, one was a sophomore in college. My son in college was going to Olympic trials that summer for swimming.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
My son in high school was, like president of everything. Anyway, it was all fun, except that I was always so tired. And I had a hard time reading my journal entries. I was like, man, I was exhausted. I was crabby. My mom was dying.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
I did a lot of crying. So I just have to get back and get over it and just log mileage. But, drag my box of journals or submit all my spreadsheets or whatever they need. But I do have it. So,
mm-hmm. Yeah.
But so my recommendation to people is keep a written journal and make spreadsheets. Because now, as soon as I'm done, I just put it on the spreadsheet as well as in my journal. Mm-hmm. So electronic and paper, just in case something goes wrong.
Well, that's in my case. I have, over 100 and I think I'm at 135 sheets where I've printed out 4 weeks at a time that I write. It's just a printed spreadsheet, but I've scanned some of them, so I need to just take a day and take a picture of every single one and put it on iCloud.
And I don't trust my Fitbit or I have Fitbit and I have Runkeeper, and I don't trust those because if that company shut down, where'd my data go?
Yeah, exactly.
So I use it to refer to make sure, and then I record it. So, and lucky for me, I was a big pedometer person, and I had pedometers for all my students in PE class, and they put it on every time I came to class. Mm-hmm. So I always wore a hip pedometer, so I could always know how far I ran. Mm-hmm. And I started wearing one of those, I think, in 99. So it just happened, and I would double check. I'm like, I don't know if I've got this right. Let's drive it off with the car, So I was pretty, not obsessed, but conscientious about making sure the mileage was correct.
Mm-hmm. So, and plus, running 1.2 miles, I've never run more or less than, I don't know, probably 1.5, but who knows if that's a little bit less or what, but
it's I just want to always be a little bit more if I can and whatever, and again, I guess I'm not trying to cheat the system, but I'm one of those people that's a compliance person. So I want to make sure I do it right so it doesn't it doesn't take away from somebody else either.
Mm-hmm. And what about injuries throughout your run streak?
Well, I've had a couple, and in 2001, the flip phones were a thing, and they didn't have alarms on them and everything, and I left my phone in the kitchen, and at 5 in the morning, the alarm, I guess it did have one. But anyway, it went off, and I went down to turn it off because it was Easter morning. Mm-hmm. And I tripped over the vacuum cleaner.
Yep, of course.
And I cracked my toe, and that was my marathon year. And I was training for my marathon, so they gave me a steel thing for my shoe to put in my shoe. And I hobbled along, and that healed fine, and that wasn't a big deal. But then in 2017, we got new furniture, and I took my first nap on the couch one Friday night, and I woke up, and I stubbed my toe on the coffee table, and I heard it break. I mean, it went snap.
That's what you get for taking a nap on a Friday night.
Yep. So I ended up going to the acute care the next morning, and she goes, "Nice job." I was bawling. And she's like, I said, "I have a running streak." And I said, "I can't break it. This doesn't work." And it was November. We had snow. So she gave me a surgical shoe instead of, just take it easy. She was very compassionate about my streak. And then my son, who kind of thought I was nuts about a broken toe, didn't think I broke it, he went out and ran with me. And it wasn't really, I said, "You can walk." I'm trying to run, but it's not really going that well.
Yeah.
But I hobbled. And then I went to my bike shoe. I have, clip-on bike shoes, and they don't bend. So I used that shoe both at school and out on running, and it was just clomp.
Was that just on the one foot?
Yeah, on the one foot. And it was ugly. But I asked a doctor on our team who was picking up his kids, and I said, "How long does it take for a broken toe to heal?" He goes, "Well, what have you been doing?" I said, "Never mind."
Yeah.
I've been running.
Yeah.
So that took a lot longer than I thought. And then in the process of running weird, I tore some hamstrings. And so that year I went from a broken toe to then I had hamstrings, my hip, everything started to hurt.
Yeah.
And I went into my doctor, and it got to the point where I don't remember if it was my right side or my left side hurt the worst, but I went into my doctor and I said, "I can't move my other leg now." So they did some MRIs, and I had a torn labrum. And I think it was from slipping and sliding in the snow and running in snow. And then I would teach outdoor PE in the winter and have kids building snow forts and sledding. And, so it was just, it got really bad. So my doctor, he's kind of the one that nudged me into, "Why don't you run in the mornings?" back in 99. So he knew I wasn't going to take a day off or have surgery on my labrum. So he sent me to a orthopedic surgeon who does PRP.
What's that?
It's plasma-rich protein. They take your own blood, they spin off the plasma or the protein, whatever, I don't know, red blood, whatever they do, and then they re-inject it into the injury site using ultrasound to guide the needle, and then that makes it inflamed, and it heals. It's the healing process starts up on the tear. So no surgery. It was done twice. And that doctor said, "You need, as soon as he did it, he goes, 'Now run up and down the halls because we want to get some inflammation going.'" And so I thought, okay, I can run. So the first time I did it, I ran the next day and it felt great, and then I had to go back 2 weeks later. And then that time it hurt so much worse. And I ran, but by the time I got to school, I couldn't lift my leg.
Oof.
I couldn't walk. And all the kids were like, "What happened, Mrs. Gordon?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
So I gave a health lesson that day.
Yeah.
But that I would highly recommend if anybody has an injury. There's non-surgical things out there now that haven't been around that long, but they're there. So if you explain things it's different now. They don't all say, "Well, rest,"
Yeah.
So explore and look for somebody who can help you heal without stopping. And I always think if if somebody was attacking me, I could run a mile.
Yeah, that's how, exactly.
If my life depended on it, I could go run a mile. So I'm going to go run a mile.
That's how I think of it too. It's like, if, we live in the United States, it's not really a dangerous country, but anywhere else, it's, you get injured and you have to run for survival. Sometimes you have those runs where you just have to survive through it. So it's...
Yep. So that's what I do. And then I ended up, my other leg, the hamstrings were still, I couldn't figure out why they hurt so bad. So I had another MRI and they're like, oh, you have 3 torn hamstrings.
Wow.
And so I went to a physical therapist to get some dry needling. And that's another thing where they take a needle into the center of the place and wiggle it. And then it kind of breaks up it's painful. But it worked. And she was amazing too. She was really, really trying to help me. So there's a lot of things you can do nowadays that maybe a lot of people haven't heard of. But a couple of people recommended dry needling, so I contacted the lady, and it really went nice. So I'm very aware of injuries. I'm very careful. I did go skiing this winter. We have a little tiny slope here in Sioux Falls that it has a lift and stuff. But I was like,
yeah,
I hope nothing happens, and I'm not going to make a habit of it. But I'm very cautious. But I don't want my streak to stop me from doing.
Yeah, I think there's that middle way.
Yeah, but actually, it almost stopped me from taking a trip to Australia. I'm like,
yeah.
So anyway,
early on in my streak, I was afraid to travel. You just never know where you're going to stay, what it's going to be like. And, in my 20s, I've traveled 5 times to India. And it's like, once you kind of do it once, then, you just figure out the run, being chased by wild dogs and all sorts of,
I do ask the concierge, the hotel, the front desk, whatever, is there a safe place around here to run? And I've been told once, if you go that way, we'll never see you again. Okay, I'll just run around the hotel. Parking lot it is.
Yeah, I've never asked before, actually.
Yeah, and a lot of times they have trails. One time they printed off a map. I'm like, whoa, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the fun things about having a streak is we would travel to swim meets, and all my husband saw was the trip to the pool, the trip to our restaurant, the trip back to the hotel. And I'm like, did you know they have a canal system here?
Yeah.
And I ran along the canal, and did you know that there's a blah, blah, blah. So I would get to see a lot more of a city than everybody else did because I was out figuring it out. So that was a perk, and it still is. I still get to do that. Yeah. But a few other obstacles that, a lot of people talk about is the weather in South Dakota. Yeah. For example, the other day we woke up it was cool at night and it was like fall. And then we woke up to snow. This was Tuesday or Wednesday? Wednesday. And then by afternoon, it was sunny and bright. It was like 3 seasons in 12 hours.
Yeah.
We had it.
That's true.
And a lot of people think, you run all winter. And I'm like, winter's a lot easier than hot and humid.
Yeah. Well, but in the morning times, it's okay, is it?
Yeah. But summer, we get humidity, we get wind, we get hot, we get cold, we get wind. We have wind.
Yeah. That's hard.
And the other day I planned my route so the wind would push me up the trail on the way back. And it blew me off the trail. Oof. It was 40 some mile an hour winds. And I'm like, holy cow. Yeah. So there's been times where, okay, how am I going to do this? Because the wind it'll shift, so. But weather is one of those things, and you just have to live with that wherever you go.
And you're probably even more grateful for those perfect days, after running through the windy, the snow, the ice. And once you have that perfect day, it's like, wow, I deserve this.
Yeah. And so that's one of the other things too. I worked in a gym, no windows. I taught all day with no windows, then went to swim practice in a pool with no windows. And so even going out and running in the morning in the starlight made a big difference. It just made me appreciate a cold, crisp morning. I look up at the stars and go, well, there's something, you know, at least I get to appreciate this. Mm-hmm. And I think it really saved my sanity. Mm-hmm. And I quit hating winter so much. I used to just loathe winter. And after a while, I was like, oh, it's kind of fun to get out here. And as long as you know how to dress. And that's probably one of the biggest questions people who are starting out around here ask is like, what do you wear? Mm-hmm. And if you go to the running, you know, like to a place that sells running stuff, you know, your local place, it all looks like treadmill running. Like, you don't really wear that when you're running in winter. You need to get this, and this, you know. So I do think that's one thing that maybe the streakers thing could do is like share like what's the best 20 below, or you know, what's the best clothes for different seasons and different temps, and you know, because it's hard to find stuff. They'll say, oh yeah, this is great. I'm like, no, not enough. You know, I take an extra bag usually just for my running clothes. It'll take another bag. Yeah. So,
I mean, I've been wearing the same clothes for, you know, my whole streak of 18 years. Even, you know, since high school, my same winter stuff I got when I started, I still wear, which, who knows, you know, definitely out of fashion or whatever, but it works.
You know I same here. Yeah. Like, I don't want to give it up. Yeah. You know? And I actually got asked once, we had a new swimmer and Mom was talking and I said something about running or something. She goes, are you the lady in the red jacket? And I'm like, oh no, I'm one of those people. Yeah. Nameless people on the trail.
Yeah, there's your nickname.
Yeah, it's once you find something that works, you just don't want to.
The lady in red.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, well, my one question I do like to ask run streakers, especially with the streak of, you know, I guess at least, you know, so many years, you know, you're in the 21 years, because you were mentioning, you know, you're out in the morning kind of appreciating the day. So for you, how does the run become not just about the run? How does it become something more to you? As, you know, we've talked about before, if you listen to the podcast, it's, you know, that time of day for gratitude or the time to connect with yourself. So what does that kind of mean to you?
Well, for me, you know, I was a health and fitness PE teacher. I'm a swim coach. Fitness has always been really important. And for me, that means modeling it and showing them that I walk the walk. I don't talk the talk. I walk the walk or run the run, I say. Yeah. And not that they all have to be runners, but, you know, I want people to do as I do, not as I say, you know. Mm-hmm. And so being a good role model for all those around me. And then for me, it just really helped me get through each day. And I look back at that journal that I would start crying on, and I'm like, at least I ran and I got through these hard times, you know. Mm-hmm. When you lose a parent or, you know, things go wrong or your kids go away to college, you know, you can go out and run it off, you know, and you cry a little and pretty soon you're just thinking about something else. It gives you that chance to stress relieve. Mm-hmm. And that's what exercise has always helped me with, is stress relief. And I don't know how people who don't do anything deal with stress. You know, you need, our bodies were designed that when they're in that fight or flight mode, that we do something, you know, and that's how we relieve stress. And if you don't get up and do something, you know, your body struggles. So I just wanted to be a good role model. I wanted to relieve my own stress. I also have some fibromyalgia, and aerobic exercise is very helpful for that. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I've always tried to do something aerobic. And I think that helps relieve some of that achiness. And I have a mentality that got put into words my last couple of years of teaching. They had signs all over the elementary, I can do hard things. Mm-hmm. And I liked that because I thought, you know what, I can do hard things. I've given birth to 3 gigantic 9-pounder, you know, my kids are all huge, and I can run every day. I can get out and do stuff I don't want to do. You know, if you can do this, you can do that. Yeah. You know? And so I like that. And I just like to show people that, you know, it doesn't need to be running. I have other streaks too, which they were more like New Year's resolutions that I kept forever. And one of them, college, was no more candy bars, no more French fries.
Nice.
So I haven't had a candy bar or a French fry since 1979.
Cool. Well, yeah, I like these streak stories because I'm similar too. You just kind of give things up.
Yeah, and then I gave up potato chips next year because they replaced French fries. Yeah. So I haven't had an actual potato chip since 1980. Journaling, keeping a journal. There was a few others that I'd had along the way, but just trying to be a better habit. Tiny habits done over and over make big differences. Yeah. And so I think that's a good thing to model. And I've had people say, hey, I've run a year. I have at least 2 people following me now on a streak, and I'm trying to get them to register. And I've had a former swimmer come up and say, hey, I did a whole year without pop. That's like, I hadn't seen her in 8-9 years. And she saw me and said, I did a whole year without any pop because I thought of you. And I was like, oh, cool.
That's a good streak.
So,
I had that streak for a long time until, well, my brother and I have this disagreement. Like there's other like carbonated water and like kombucha, and he's like, that's still carbonated. But I'm like, well, I mean, it's not soda. So,
gray areas are hard.
Yeah.
Because like, what's a Twix? Is a Twix a candy bar or a cookie bar? I'm like, it's candy bar.
Yeah, I think I agree.
Oh dear. But like if you give up candy, then what do you do when grandma makes the fudge? So after you say, make it more specific so
Yeah.
And I'd get tons of candy bars as gifts, and I'd be, thank you. And then I'd bring it home and my kids are like, yay, mom's not eating it, I did.
Yeah.
So, but the other thing I wanted to mention too is like my family is super duper supportive of me. And that's been a big help. And my husband doesn't do anything aerobic. He was a baseball pitcher. He likes golf. I hate golf, but he does his thing. I support him. I do my thing. He supports me.
Yeah. It's not like you have to both do the same thing all the time. You'd get tired of each other.
And my kids, like, there would be days when I'd go out early and they didn't see me, and then, like, we'd be traveling, and one of my kids would say, Mom, what about your streak? I'm like, got it? Yeah, thank you. And a couple times they've gone out with me, and now I have 2 daughter-in-laws that will go run with me, and
nice.
It's really, really a nice thing. But none of them are really runners, but they do hard things. My daughter is a firefighter paramedic. She lives on the I do hard things list, And so I hope that's been inspirational to those kinds of,
and
people.
Your kids never wanted to start a streak or got in, started running at all. I guess they just kind of gravitated towards swimming.
Yeah, they were much better at swimming. They all tried cross country. My youngest son played baseball, and swam, and he was really good at baseball too. And then they lift, and my oldest son, who was also a very good swimmer, he does a lot of hiking now in Tennessee, and he does backpacking and kind of survival-y type things. So he'll go backpacking with a weighted backpack just to make sure that if he wants, he has some of those kinds of goals. So, that's good. Find your thing. Yeah.
Nice.
So, yeah. But that's my thing is I just want people to know you don't have to be good at something to be dedicated to it.
Yeah, I think that's great advice.
Yeah. So, and if you see me out there, like I've had people say, hey, I saw you running. I go, was I going fast?
Yeah.
And they that look in their eyes like, and then I go, yep, it was me. Because they don't want to say no.
Yeah, it's just a matter of getting out there every day. It doesn't matter what you look like or what pace you're running or anything. It's that, that commitment and that consistency.
Yep. And I laughed because I noticed that, like, on the world rankings, I'm kind of up in the top 100. And I laughed. I thought, who'd have thought,
Yeah, it's just something you do every day. It's like, that's why it's funny, like, talking with other run streakers. And even when I was interviewed, a few years ago, I'm like, there's not much to say, we just get out and run. And, we have this run streak registry, and, it's it's not like we're lining up for a race and seeing who's beating each other. It's like we all just get out there every day and log the days without even realizing it. And, it's not like we're trying to beat anybody.
No. And I'm like, this is kind of fun having somebody else to talk to, because other than Tony, the one who got me started, and then a former coworker who also has I think she's at 20 years this year. And I contacted her yesterday. I'm like, you need to register.
Yeah.
I don't see her anymore, and I don't run with anybody who has a streak. So it was sort of like it was my thing. And now I'm realizing, no, it's not just me. It's fun. I'd love to, like get together and stuff. It'd be fun to run into people. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too.
Maybe that's down the trail.
Yeah. Well, anytime you can always call me and we'll talk about our daily runs and.
Yeah, I'm really glad you started a podcast. I'm like, shoot, I could have done that, but it's already done.
No, it's not already done. You keep at it. Start something up, and I don't know. It's just been fun talking to other run streakers about their stories. I and kind of in my mind, I just think, this is what happened. This is how I started, but it's been just very intriguing to me to figure out how someone else got into running. And, for the most part, it was, even talking with, I don't know if you remember Mark Covert, he was at number 1. He retired after 45 years. His run streak, he just similarly, I've been running every day for 30 days. Let's, maybe I'll train or do this for a year. And, then you just keep going. So.
Yeah. And it just happens. It's born. It's kind of born instead of.
Yeah, it's born. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then coming to that, like people have asked me, when are you going to end it? And I always thought, well, 28 years was my goal. And I laughingly said, 20 years ago, I'll be 66 when I hit it. Well, now I'm almost 60. I'll be 60 in a month. I'm like, it's getting close,
yeah.
It's sort of like the last month of pregnancy. Am I going to make it?
Yeah.
And now I've decided I'm not going to end at 28.
Yeah, I mean, just day by day, and I was saying, like, if I reach, being 60 years old and I'm still alive, I'll still be running. It's just a matter of being alive at that time.
Yeah, and kudos to you for running through pregnancy and during, like the day your baby was born. And
yeah, that's true.
Wow. I just wish I'd have started earlier. Now, I wish I'd have started the streak when I tried to start running more.
Yeah.
I'd have 4 more years on it.
Yeah. Well, you'll just have to keep going, but at least you were running before then. It's like I feel like maybe you had to, in some ways we had to get through certain obstacles to make us want to run every day, or want to not take that day off. Because I remember I used to log my runs and I just did not like doing that X for a day, like I'd always like to write something. So I'm like, that's kind of how it started, just visually seeing, okay, I ran, logging my time and miles for the day. Next day, like I don't want that X, I got to write something in. So. Yeah,
exactly. And even if you run, like I heard your dad, it runs 2 miles every day.
More like,
that's
2 miles, a measly mile.
Age probably does,
Yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And so, little pieces add up over time.
Yeah. And he's the same way. Morning routine, he wakes up, gets out, runs with his border collies, 1 measly mile. He doesn't even measure it. So one time I ran with him and he's like, okay, it's more than a mile, right? And luckily it was like, 1.2 or something. Like this whole time.
Yeah, that's a worry. It's funny. Like, even before I knew there were rules, I was still setting a similar type rule myself, to make sure. So,
I didn't know that rule either, but I think it makes sense to have that 1 mile. I mean, even if it's 1 kilometer, it's, it's just a little bit over 1 kilometer for those in other countries. So it's 1 mile.
I wondered about that.
Well, no, it's 1 mile internationally.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Cool. Mm-hmm. All right. Well,
cool. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And start up a podcast. Don't feel like I'm the one that started
I'll
it.
Just
but
listen to you.
Yeah.
You're doing great.
Well, if you have any input or anything else, and feel free to be in touch, or or anything else like that.
All right. Well, thank you, and enjoy your run today if you haven't already.
Yep, I'm leaving here soon.
Good. Keep on keeping on.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Paula, and we'll be in touch.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks. Yep. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to the Daily Run with Za. I hope you enjoyed Paula. If you're interested in starting a streak, or if you have a run streak already, we talked about the International Run Streak Association. Go to runeveryday.com and you can read more about what a run streak is and how you might want to get started. So you can always visit my website as well, dailyrunwithza.com. And I hope to update more with stories, and you'll find other podcasts there. So happy running.